In the anime, the team of Universe 2 had plenty of screen time during the Tournament of Power arc, and they demonstrated being one of the strongest teams. Unfortunately, we actually get to see the abilities and techniques of most members of Team 2, which we will be using as a basis for this video. With that being said, let's start right away with our first fighter. Ribrianne is a fairly disliked character by the fans, which honestly I can see why. She can be very annoying in the anime, and she also is a bit of a weird case. Usually, a lot of fighters for the Tournament of Power are very underused and to some extent wasted. But in the case of Ribrianne, she's the opposite. It could be said that she was actually overused, and despite that, she didn't do anything of worth really. At least, I don't remember if Ribrianne did anything important plot-wise. I think at most she eliminated 118 in the anime, but to be honest, anyone could have done that. But putting aside her characterization in the anime, in this video we are focusing on her abilities and powers, and when it comes to that, we actually see what her powers are like in the anime. So that is what we are going to be using as our basis to build her up more. So as a magical girl, Ribrianne's abilities revolve all around her beliefs regarding positive emotions, such as love and happiness, and as such, she can literally use the power of love. She can use the emotion of love or even any other positive emotion she's having in any given moment, and she can convert it into raw ki energy, which she can use to perform her techniques or to just increase her overall power level. Additionally, she can even store a large amount of love energy to be used whenever it's necessary. Now, you might be asking yourself, if she increases her power by feeling love at any specific moment, will it not be weird that she feels love while she's fighting a hostile enemy? And to answer that question, Ribrianne always fights for a purpose that she deeply cares about. For example, she believes in trying to protect people, or she wants to eradicate evil from the world. Having these beliefs are more than enough for Ribrianne to be able to use the power of love even while fighting. Moving on, her love energy can be used for many purposes. For instance, Ribrianne have a passive regeneration capable of healing and surviving any wounds as long as she have energy left. Her power of love can also bypass any kind of negative effect over herself or even her allies. In other words, she can use a dispel technique that nullifies magical spells or psychic techniques, even just plain poison and so on. Ribrianne can also use her love powers to manipulate her body, by either making it more flexible or to increase her physical size, and she can even grow wings if she desires to. She's also a very powerful psychic, capable of using telekinesis, but her real strength is when it comes to telepathy. Being capable of communicating telepathically with almost anyone, no matter the distance or the amount of people. She can even detect and feel the emotions of others. Her offensive techniques also have very unique properties as well. For instance, her energy attacks are not destructive by nature and only affects the target she actually wants to attack to, and it is harmless to anything else or anyone else. More advanced offensive techniques of Ribrianne includes energy attacks that can automatically follow the objective and can bypass any kind of obstacles to reach them, such as any type of barrier. Another property of her love attacks is that these deal more damage to objectives that Ribrianne considers evil. The more evil Ribrianne considers someone, the more damage her attacks will deal. Even more, her attacks can also affect incorporeal creatures such as spirits or ghosts. Her love attacks also have the property of healing allies, so pretty much they can be used offensively or as a supportive technique. Other techniques of Ribrianne include creating energy binds that trap and seal the target. The more evil the target is perceived by Ribrianne, the stronger is the seal. And finally, she can fire an arrow that once reaching the target, it acts as a poison of love that weakens them quite a lot if they are considered evil. This arrow of love can also be used on allies to buff their strength temporarily with love. Putting aside her techniques, Ribrianne is actually very charismatic. At least that's the case for our revision, which makes her a very good team player, being able to inspire her allies, and additionally, her incredible powerful conviction in her doctrine of love makes her an opponent that will never give up against any enemy. Now, let's quickly go through the power level of Ribrianne during the Tournament of Power. In her base form, she has a power level of 52, being significantly weaker than base Goku. Also, she doesn't have any of her love special powers in her base form, but she does have the basic key techniques. In her demigod magical form, she has a power level of 58, equal to a Super Saiyan Goku, and with godly ki, her magical form have a power level of 68, slightly stronger than a Super Saiyan God Goku. At full power, she has a level of 76, slightly weaker than a perfected Super Saiyan Blue Goku. By boosting her power with love energy, she can go between a power of 78 and up to 83, which is slightly weaker than a maximum Kaioken Blue Goku. Since these power-ups are conditional to use love energy, it can be less reliable. Finally, Ribrianne have another transformation, the Goddess of Love form, which by the time of the tournament she hasn't mastered it yet, but still it is quite powerful. To access this form, Ribrianne have to assimilate the love of people. With this, her power increases the more people are cheering for her. As long as there are people cheering for her, Ribrianne has near immortality. This transformation is somewhat similar to the Spirit Bomb, with Ribrianne telepathically interacting with others, asking them to grant their love to her, which translates to more power. With this form, all of Ribrianne attacks, and even just her presence, weakens any enemy that is perceived as evil. She is also capable of healing and empowering allies with just her presence as well. Finally, one of her most powerful attacks is using the Black Hole Love attack, which absorbs any attack and defense the enemy have. Anyone that is inside the Black Hole of Love is extremely weakened and sealed inside of it. In her goddess form, Ribrianne can have a power level up to 87, slightly weaker than an Ultra Instinct Saiyan Goku. But as I said before, this is an unmastered state, which means it can become stronger. Ribrianne can't use this form for a long time, since all the love energy can overpower her limits, and also is conditional to having people cheering for her, which heavily affects the reliability of this form. Next is our first secondary fighter of Team 2, the magical girl Kakunza. While Ribrianne's main conviction is love, Kakunza is all about wildness and nature. As such, her fighting style is similar to a little and agile beast. In her magical form, Kakunza have multiple animal states, which grants her different capabilities. For example, there is the aquatical animal state that adapts her body for aquatic environments. There is the avian state that grants her wings and fast flying speed. Or the megafauna animal state that grants her a huge size, defense, and strength in exchange of speed and stamina. These are just a few examples I came up with, but surely she has other animal states that have their own uses. The state that Kakunza uses the most is the feline state, which is a very balanced fighting mode, possessing little claws and a very agile body, capable of handling direct combat or other fighting tactics such as stealth. Other abilities shared between states are enhanced senses such as smell, sight, or hearing. Also, she has a moderate regeneration, excellent tracking abilities, and also a fitting her beast-like power, she have a very good natural fighting and survival instincts, greatly helping her during combat. Despite having a good amount of flexibility with her animal states, Kakunza doesn't use ki energy blast. Instead, she specializes in using her ki to mainly empower her body and melee attacks. Additionally, unlike the other two magical girls, Kakunza actually loves fighting and have a great motivation to improve and never give up during a fight. The power level of Kakunza in her normal form have a power level of 52, weaker than base Goku, and also she doesn't have access to her usual abilities and only can use ki for the basic techniques. While using her magical girl form, she has a base power of 58 equal to a Super Saiyan Goku, and in her magical form with godly ki, she has a power of 68, weaker than a fully powered Super Saiyan God. She also has access to the Beast Power Boost, which increases her power to her limits, entering a berserker-like state. This creates a constant tension in her body and makes her act and fight in pure instincts, decreasing the reliability and intellect while using the Beast Power Boost. With this state, she has a power level of 73, stronger than a fully powered Super Saiyan God Goku. Kakunza can increase her power even more by being buffed with the Ribrianne's power of love, which naturally is an unreliable source of power since it is conditional of an external source. This boost of power increases the level of Kakunza by 3, having a power level of 76 at the highest, slightly weaker than a Super Saiyan Blue Goku. The second secondary fighter and last magical girl is Rozie. While Ribrianne uses the love and Kakunza her animal forms, Rozie specializes in magical powers. Of the three magical girls, Rozie possesses the most intellect, especially when it comes to creativity and coming up with solutions in the fly, usually being her the one to come up with plans for the magical girls team. Rozie is not the best at martial arts, but despite that, she is still very skilled at using her magical abilities to support allies and fight enemies. As it is usually common with sorcerers, when it comes to offensive attacks, Rozie struggles a bit more. Although she does possess a variety of offensive options, she can either use the standard magical energy blast, elemental attacks, and even psychic abilities that directly attack the minds of the target. When it comes to supportive techniques, this is where Rozie really shines, having a multitude of magical spells at her disposal, such as healing, teleportation, transmutation, intangibility, invisibility, and so on. She also can use magic to buff her allies, increasing different combat stats, and can also use barriers to defend them. Additionally, she can create portals and pocket dimensions for her allies to use for teleportation and safety. The most powerful magical spell of Rozie is the ability to time stop in a large area for several seconds. This technique requires a lot of energy, so Rozie can realistically only use it a few times in a single fight. It is important to mention that the effects of time stop can be overcome by stronger opponents that possess good ki control. In some cases, it can even affect stronger enemies to a lesser extent, slowing them down instead. The power level of Rozie in her normal form is 52, weaker than base Goku. In her magical gear form, she has a power level of 58 equal to a Super Saiyan Goku, and by using Godly Ki, she has a power level of 68, slightly weaker than a Super Saiyan God Goku. She also possesses a magical buff that increases her power to 73, making her stronger than a fully powered Super Saiyan God Goku. This buff only lasts for a limited amount of time, but can be used after the cooldown resets. Just like Kakunza, Rozie can increase her power even more by being buffed with the Ribrianne's power of love. This boost of power increases by 3, granting Rozie a power of 76 at the highest, slightly weaker than a Super Saiyan Blue Goku. The third and last secondary fighter of Team 2 is Zarbuto, who in the anime really didn't show any unique abilities or techniques. And apparently, there is a fighter from the TOEFL race in Team 2, so because of that, I decided to leave Zarbuto as one. With that in mind, I came up with a short backstory to explain his abilities. The TOEFL race from Universe 2 possess high level of technology, especially when it comes to genetic manipulation. Since the TOEFL are not particularly strong, they decided to genetically experiment on members of their race to increase their potential. The only survivor of this experiment was the legendary war hero Zarbuto, who after being enhanced, he not only possessed a potential much higher than the average TOEFL, but also acquired more powerful abilities related to the sun and stars. This is obviously intended since the sun is a very important symbol for the TOEFLs in Universe 2. With that being said, Zarbuto continued to train non-stop to become the strongest TOEFL warrior of all time, possessing not only raw power, but great combat skills and willpower, thanks to his experience. Offense is definitely the strongest aspect of Zarbuto, and in his case, his key attacks possess the attributes of the sun, such as superheated plasma and nuclear radiation, making Zarbuto attacks more powerful and lethal than the usual key attacks. The most powerful attack of Zarbuto is creating a huge energy ball akin to a sun, being highly destructive and capable of directly damaging the cells of a target with radiation. Another central ability of Zarbuto is absorbing Genki energy from the stars, which is used to recover energy and recover from damage. He can share his solar energy to allies for the same purposes, although it is not nearly as effective. Other abilities include the solar flare, which temporarily blinds the target, high resistance to radiation and other poisonous effects, and also he has an incredibly strong willpower, which even makes him resistant to psychic abilities. Zarbuto enters at the powered form when he has no solar energy source left, greatly decreasing his strength, having a power level of 50, way weaker than base Goku. Zarbuto have a power level of 55 in his base state, equal to base Goku. Additionally, Zarbuto have a technique that boosts his power level called the Solar Burst. With this, Zarbuto uses his solar energy to enhance every cell of his body, but killing them in the process, essentially using the cells as fuel. With this technique, Zarbuto's entire body is covered in solar plasma. With the Solar Burst, the exact increase of power depends entirely of Zarbuto. The higher he increases his power, the more of his cells are used as fuel. If it wasn't for his fast regeneration, the Solar Burst technique can completely consume Zarbuto's body, and even with regeneration, is dangerous to use. With the Solar Burst at max potency, Zarbuto have a power level of 64, stronger than a Super Saiyan 3 Goku. Thanks to the genetic modification that Zarbuto went through, he can use the Super TOEFL form, although he hasn't mastered it yet. In his Super TOEFL Godly form, he have a power level of 71, slightly weaker than an imperfected Super Saiyan Blue Goku. And by adding to this the Solaris Burst, his power increases to 75, weaker than a perfected Blue Goku, and with Solaris Burst at max potency, Zarbuto have a power level of 80, equal to a limited Kaioken Blue Goku. Naturally, at max potency with the Super TOEFL form, his body undergo extreme strain, making it very hard to use for extended periods of time. Our first main fighter is Zirloin, who for our revision have a similar role to Frieza in Universe 7, being the self-proclaimed Emperor of the Universe 2, and also being an antagonistic force against the magical girls. Zirloin is one of the strongest and most dangerous fighters for the Tournament of Power, being all around strong, having a great intellect for planning and tactics during and outside of battle, and also being incredibly skilled at combat. Zirloin's main source of power is his ability to control the Genki energy of the cosmic forces of the universe, allowing him to reproduce different cosmic effects. For instance, he can use powerful techniques that have the same effects as a supernova or stars, being capable of damaging the enemies to a cellular level because of the radiation and also being very destructive. The basic energy attacks of Zirloin are particle beams that are more lethal than the standard key attacks but also requires more energy to use. Zirloin can also create black holes to consume everything in the surroundings, but his most powerful attack is the quasar. With this technique, Zirloin releases from his body an immense amount of energy akin to a supernova. And by also using the properties of a black hole at the same time, he attracts everything into himself, destroying them in the process with a huge energy sphere surrounding Zirloin. This technique can be activated for long periods of time, although it consumes a large amount of energy pretty quickly. Zirloin can also control gravity, which works in a similar way to telekinesis. And he can also control electromagnetism, which can be used to generate blinding flashes of light or for invisibility. Zirloin can also use energy barriers, electricity attacks, and white holes creation that can be used as portals for teleportation. Even though Zirloin is pretty solid in most aspects, he has two potential weaknesses. One is his pride and cruelty, which makes it very difficult for others to cooperate with him, only willing to fight when he deems it worth his time, otherwise he might just leave his allies to fight for themselves without intervening. Another potential weakness of Zirloin is that all of his cosmic techniques requires a huge amount of energy to use, way more than the average key technique. And even though he can recover energy by absorbing cosmic Genki energy, it might still not be enough to completely offset the consumption rate. In the worst cases, he can be almost completely vulnerable without any energy left to use in a fight. The base power level of Zirloin is 55, equal to base Goku, and at full demigod power, he have a level of 60, stronger than a Super Saiyan 2 Goku. By absorbing cosmic Genki energy, he can increase his power up to 65, slightly weaker than a Super Saiyan God Goku. With Godly Ki, he have a power level of 70, equal to a fully powered Super Saiyan God Goku, and at full power, he have a power level of 79, stronger than a perfected Super Saiyan Blue Goku. Finally, with Godly Ki and by absorbing cosmic energy, he have a power level up to 85, stronger than a Max Kaioken Blue Goku. The second main fighter of Team 2 is Rabanra, the proclaimed nemesis of the magical girls, especially Ribrianne. For our revision, Rabanra is part of a demonic clan and he represents the opposite of Ribrianne. Instead of using love as a source of power, he feeds from hate and negative emotions. Rabanra can store the hate energy from different sources, either from himself or others. The hate attacks of Rabanra are similar to a curse, not only damaging the body of a target, but also lasting for long periods of time and weakening their mind and spirit. The more the target is affected by Rabanra's attacks, the faster the weakening effects works. He also possesses very powerful psychic abilities, including telekinesis and telepathy, which he can use to mind blast his enemies, which can leave them disoriented or even left in a coma if their minds are not strong enough. Other abilities of Rabanra is the creation of mental illusions, used to trick opponents or to instill fear on them. He also possesses a highly enhanced regeneration. Another powerful ability of Rabanra is that he becomes very resistant and even invulnerable to attacks from opponents that hate him, or feel any other negative emotions towards him. The effectiveness of this technique depends on the overall strength of the enemy and other factors such as mental fortitude. Rabanra himself is a very nefarious fighter, using nasty tactics to destroy his enemies. In fact, his preferred style is not direct combat but cursing his enemies from the shadows, hiding while mind blasting them with hate psychic attacks, while their opponents are unaware of his location. If he is found, he will use his illusions to trick the enemies and escape to hide once again, and continuing doing this deplorable tactic. The base power level of Rabanra is of 54, slightly weaker than base Goku, and by increasing his power with hate, he has a power level of 58, equal to a Super Saiyan Goku. Rabanra can increase his power by using his Abomination transformation, having a body more adapted for direct combat, possessing a power level of 62 while using the Demigod Ki, being slightly stronger than a Super Saiyan 3 Goku. With Godly Ki, his power level is up to 69, slightly weaker than a fully powered Super Saiyan God Goku, and by using his Abomination Godly form, he possesses a power level of 79, stronger than a perfected Super Saiyan Blue Goku. By using hate energy to increase the power of his godly abomination form, Rabanra have a power level up to 85, stronger than a maximum Kaioken Blue Goku. Although using both the godly abomination form and the hate energy power boost strains quite a lot the body of Rabanra. Our first backup fighter is the Yadrat from Universe 2, Jimeeze, one of the allies of the magical girls. Possessing a great intellect and using his spirit control to complement, Jimeeze is a very tricky opponent to fight against, having a unique fighting style revolving around using the teleportation technique, taking advantage of its speed and trickery to make up for his relatively weaker skills at direct combat. Jimeeze is a master at using the teleportation technique, being capable of using the instant transmission without the need of sensing ki. And also, he is capable of teleporting to any place he had been before, being more akin to the Kai of the Kaioshin. He can teleport many times in a very fast rate, making it very hard to catch him. He is also capable of teleporting others without the need of touching, either allies or even enemies. In the latter case, if the enemy is too strong or have very good ki control, the teleportation doesn't work optimally and is only capable of teleporting the target to much shorter distances. Jimeeze can also use the teleportation to switch places with the desired target, including objects, granting a great deal of flexibility despite just using one technique. Despite not having very powerful offensive capabilities, Jimeeze's energy attacks can be very hard to deal with, since he can use the teleportation techniques on them, meaning he can teleport his energy blast close to the target instantly. He also can teleport enemy energy attacks back to them. Other applications related to the teleportation technique is the ability to create portals and the usage of the phantom teleport technique, where Jimeeze teleports something or someone and leaves an illusion behind of the target that stays in a place for a while, similar to the after image technique. Outside of the teleportation technique, Jimeeze also possesses the standard spirit techniques, such as cloning, enhanced energy sensing, pocket dimension creation, size body manipulation, and so on. Although he is not nearly as skilled at using these techniques as he is with teleportation, Jimeeze can also use spirit control to heal himself or others, although it takes a lot of energy and concentration since he is not specialized in using these abilities. Jimeeze have a base power of 53, weaker than base Goku, and by powering up with the spirit, he have a level of 57, slightly weaker than Super Saiyan Goku. With Godly Ki, Jimeeze have a power of 63, and with the spirit power boost, he have a level of 67, slightly stronger than a Super Saiyan God Goku. Additionally, Jimeeze can transform into the Super Yadra form, a more muscular and bigger transformation that increases his power up to 70, being equal to a fully powered Super Saiyan God Goku. With this form, Jimeeze's teleportation techniques are even more effective, allowing him to teleport huge amounts of mass, including entire planets and even beyond that. This requires a lot of energy depending on the size of the target. This massive teleportation can be even used offensively to crush the enemy with an immeasurable amount of mass. He can also attack with energy attacks that tears apart the space itself, meaning that Jimeeze's energy blast can bypass most defenses. Jimeeze have a power level of 76 in his Super Yadrat form, plus the power up from the Spirit Energy, being almost equal to a perfected Super Saiyan Blue Goku. The last backup fighter is Bikal, the vampire who could be considered more like an anti-hero from Universe 2. For our revision, Bikal uses abilities fitting of a vampire, such as sucking blood from her enemies or transforming into a bat. She mainly uses magic to perform most of her techniques, and she's very adept at psychic abilities as well. One of her magical techniques is using her fangs or claws to suck the blood from the target, which heals her wounds, recovers her stamina, and also grants her temporary resistance to the attacks from the same target. Obviously, biting someone in the middle of a fight is not easy, which is why Bikal had developed abilities to increase the effectiveness of her blood-sucking technique. For instance, to catch the enemies off guard, she can use a spell that grants her invisibility and remove any kind of scent of her body. Although, one weakness of this spell is that only lasts as long as Bikal doesn't attack. Additionally, Bikal naturally possesses a lean body that is agile and stealthy, making it easier to sneak up on her prey. And even if the enemy tries to hide their presence, Bikal can see in total darkness and have the ability of echolocation. Whenever she is able to bite the target, she will paralyze them with powerful toxins from her fangs, and what's more, she can infect them with a vampire virus. This virus is usually more effective against weaker prey but can work on strong opponents that were infected while their guard was down. The ones that are infested by the virus become low-level vampires that follows the will of Bikal. Other useful abilities of Bikal is transforming into one or multiple bats, which is useful to distract the opponents and dodge attacks. She can also summon magical bats to spy or to do ship attacks onto the target. These bats can also suck blood, and the energy and healing are transferred to Bikal. Offensively speaking, Bikal is above average, possessing fairly strong energy attacks, and in addition to that, she can also control her own blood as an offensive weapon. By solidifying her blood, she creates strong weapons which can be used for melee combat or just as projectiles. One special property of her blood is that it possesses a paralyzing effect on the target that is damaged by the blood weapons, making it very useful for Bikal when she needs to suck their blood. As a bonus, Bikal can use her blood as a defensive barrier. She also can make use of her psychic power, having many abilities such as telekinesis, telepathy, hypnosis, and even a level of mind control, which she usually uses to seduce the target. The base power level of Bikal is 55, equal to a base Goku. She also possesses a super vampire form where she grows extra wings and her fangs and claws become larger and sharper, improving her blood-sucking capabilities. By the time of the Tournament of Power, Bikal hasn't mastered Godly Ki yet, possessing a power level of 66 in her Super Vampire form, while using Godly Ki equal to a Super Saiyan God Goku. Finally, in her Super Vampire form, Bikal can summon a blood set of armor and a long sword, increasing her offensive and defensive capabilities a lot. With this armor, her blood attacks become more powerful, and her magic attacks can be used to and they also maintain their paralyzing effects. This makes her blood longsword a deadly weapon, since anyone that is not strong enough cut by it will become paralyzed and susceptible to the suck blooding technique of Bikal. This blood armor not only increases her defense against key attacks, but also grants resistance to magical and psychic abilities. Although it also has a couple of weaknesses, since it decreases the overall agility of Bikal, and also maintaining the blood armor and a sword requires a lot of energy. In this state, Bikal have a power level of 70, equal to a fully powered Super Saiyan God Goku. One of the support fighters of Universe 2 is Prum, who technically is not a single entity but a countless of them, since he is made of a colony of bacteria that acts as one single hive mind. Prum's body is not strong nor really adapted for combat, but he is very resilient because of the unique properties of his body, and also because of his natural ability to feed from any kind of energy. Prum doesn't have much intellect to speak of, but instead he is purely driven by survival instincts, which can actually make him quite dangerous when he is feeling cornered. The main ability of Prum is using his viscous body to latch onto any source of energy, suffocating the target and consuming all of their energy, leaving an empty husk behind. Prum's senses are extremely sharp, being capable of accurately detecting any source of energy, even if they are extremely far away and hiding. Since Prum is a colony of countless bacteria, he can split his main body into smaller parts, each part following the will of the entire colony. If even a single small part of Prum's body survives an attack, then he can regenerate his entire body once again by eating more energy. Prum energy is also undetectable by others, and in combination with his ability to freely change the size, shape, and form of his body, it makes him a very dangerous creature when using his amazing stealth to his advantage. Since Prum absorbs the energy with his body, it makes the enemy energy attacks virtually useless against him, making physical attacks one of the only viable ways to actually damage him. On the other hand, Prum himself lacks proper ways to attack the enemies, having only two methods. One, latching onto the enemy and successfully absorbing all of their energy, or two, using the energy attacks from the opponents against them. Since Prum is capable of holding inside his body the energy attacks from the enemy, and then release them back to them. Another curious characteristic of Prum is that he is quite cooperative with others whenever they are actually able to communicate with him, usually using a special kind of technological device that imitates the psychic signals used by the bacteria to communicate with each other. In the case of the Tournament of Power, Harmira uses such a device to communicate with Prum to help him fight their enemies. Another cool application of Prum's ability is using his body to surround an ally and protect them from enemy energy attacks, although this should be only used temporarily, since Prum's will start absorbing the vital energy of the ally himself if he stays for too long. The base power level of Prum is 50, much weaker than base Goku, and his current max amount of energy he can use to temporarily increase his power is up to 69, slightly weaker than a fully powered Super Saiyan God Goku. The second super fighter and final member of Universe 2 is Harmira, the sniper. In this case, I'll be using the sniping abilities shown by Harmira in the anime as the base concept for his fighting style. As such, Harmira uses highly concentrated energy beams that can outright defeat stronger opponents than Harima himself. Think of his snipe beams as mini special beam cannons in terms of power. Well, maybe not as strong, but you know what I mean. Harmira have multiple forms of attacks. The basic snipe attack is very fast and have a powerful penetration capabilities. The other form he possesses is the scatter beam, which is overall weaker but can attack multiple targets at the same time. Another type of beam is the psychic beam. This one doesn't physically damage the target but paralyzes their mind and by extension their body. This psychic beam requires a lot of mental effort by Harmira to perform, so he can't spam this technique. Also, the Psychic Beam doesn't work as effectively against stronger opponents, but it still can slow them down. The next type of attack is the Ricochet Beam, which as the name suggests, it ricochets when hitting any solid surface. Every time it ricochets, the beam itself moves faster. Of course, it has a limit of how much faster the beam can become. Following, we have the Energy Net Beam, which Harmira uses to trap a target inside, paralyzing them whenever they force their way out. This trap can only be fired from a short distance. Another type of attack is the Mines Beams, which are slow moving and can float in the air or burrow underground. These mines explode automatically whenever they contact with the enemy, or they can be manually activated by Harmira. Finally is the Charged Beam, an extreme version of the basic beam, much more powerful but as fast as the standard attack. Requires a lot more time and energy to use. Besides the sniping beam, Harmira uses a device that conceals his ki, making it undetectable. Additionally, the hair and skin of Harmira can change color and perfectly camouflage with the environment. And he can also burrow underground and possess smoke bombs in case he needs to run from an enemy. Despite Harmira having a perfectly accurate aim, he lacks skill in other aspects, such as close combat, where he is neither horrible but not great either. In any case, his sniping abilities make up for it. The base power of Harmira is 53, weaker than base Goku, but considering solely the power of his sniping beams, they have a power level of 64, stronger than a Super Saiyan 3 Goku. Now that we are done with the fighters of Team 2, let's quickly go through the trio of gods from Universe 2. First is the Supreme Kaioshin Pelle, who unlike most of his peers, he is more of an offense-oriented Kaioshin, making use of powerful energy attacks and have a high skill in martial arts. Pelle have a base power level of 76, slightly weaker than a perfected Super Saiyan Blue, and when using the Ultra Affinity Magic, he have a power level of 83, slightly weaker than a maximum Kaioken Blue Goku. Finally, by using his creator form, Pelle have a power level of 90, stronger than an Ultra Instinct Sign. Next is the Goddess of Destruction Helles, the self-proclaimed most prideful Hakaishin. Occasionally, Helles uses magical techniques such as sealing spells, divination, and enchantment. But during combat, she mainly uses conjuration to create powerful armors and weapons such as bows and arrows, spears, or shields. Naturally, she channels the destruction power through the conjured weapons, which greatly increases their offensive potential. To maintain her perceived beauty and grace, Helles also makes use of a powerful magical spell that completely heals her and fully recovers her ki, although realistically, she can only use this spell once per battle, since it consumes all of her magical energy. The base power level of Helles is 88, equal to Ultra Instinct Sign Goku, and when using Ultra Ego, she can reach a power level of 90, weaker than perfected Ultra Instinct Goku. With the Destroyer form, Helles have a power level of 93, surpassing in raw power at least a perfected Ultra Instinct Goku. Finally, we have the Angel of Universe 2, Zoro, who has identical abilities as the rest of his siblings. When it comes to power level, he is part of the higher tier of Angel, having a base power of 97 and with his angelic form a level of 99. So that should be it for the theme of the Universe of Love, and for our next video, we will be exploring the last theme of the Tournament of Power left, the theme of the Universe of Justice.